Residents of Vaughan are marking the anniversary of some destructive storms. It was 10 years ago today, tornadoes tore through the area, damaging hundreds of homes. And it was right around this time 10 years ago today, the tornado swept through. Vaughan was one of the hardest hit areas. Two powerful twisters tore through there. Chris Glover joins us live tonight from one of the streets that was heavily damaged. And Chris, people in that neighborhood have planned a barbecue to remember the disaster.
Yeah, several neighbors wanted to be here tonight together to share stories, to show their resilience. So that's what they're doing, gathered behind me. They're also hoping to raise money for a local food bank. But really, they just wanted to be together today because this disastrous storm changed so many lives forever.
This side had all the 2x4s and whatever junk from other neighborhoods were smashed into the walls.
Carlo Orico shows where his home was ravaged by a tornado 10 years ago today.
He did say happy anniversary this morning, and I was kind of half asleep.
The couple can laugh about it now, Nadia even wearing a T-shirt to commemorate it. But the day an EF2 tornado tore a strip through their Vaughan subdivision is a day they will never forget.
I did look outside, and all you can see is all this stuff flying, because the door had flown in, all this stuff flying by, and just this very eerie humming sound. It was surreal. It was like you can't imagine, 1 minute of your life. They said it lasted a minute, and, it felt like it lasted longer, but, you just cope.
The storm uprooted entire communities. 600 homes in Maple and Woodbridge were damaged. Approximately 40 ruined beyond repair.
It's something you can, I don't think so, never go away from you.
While some 69,000 Hydro One customers sat powerless, the power of the storm was terrifying. In the town of Durham, an 11-year-old boy was killed, but in Vaughan, only minor injuries.
They're now realizing with daybreak how much devastation and how lucky they are to be alive. At
the helm of the crisis, former Mayor Linda Jackson. Now she's a regional councillor.
It doesn't feel like 10. It feels like 2. It feels funny. It feels good that everything's rebuilt because that night it was a war zone.
Environment Canada says it was the most documented storm up to that point. At the time, residents were given roughly 45 minutes notice. Alerts mostly on TV and radio.
I know back then the Environment Canada didn't issue it quick enough, but what can you do? I mean, how often did you get a tornado in this area?
Last summer's tornado in Ottawa was the first real test of Ontario's new emergency alert system to mobile devices.
The first day that alert system was available on cell phones, it worked fabulously.
You just pray that it doesn't happen to anybody.
The Oricos hope it's an alert they will never receive. Environment Canada has confirmed that on that day 10 years ago, there were 18 tornadoes that touched down across the province of Ontario, and there were watches and warnings from Hamilton through Toronto and all the way as far as Peterborough. But as I mentioned, Vaughan was really one of the hardest hit neighborhoods, and that's why you're continuing to see this sort of response as people remember this day now 10 years later.
Good to see them getting together tonight, just like they did after the tragedy a decade ago. Thank you, Chris.
How many years, how much money is my brother's life worth? He was somebody's child that was killed. My parents should not be burying their baby boy. It's disgusting to me.
Grief and heartbreak turned to anger as the family of a man allegedly killed by a drunk driver over the weekend called for more to be done. 39-year-old Paulo Brizzi was killed in a crash on the 401 Saturday afternoon. The alleged drunk driver was released on bail today. Now the family is speaking out, saying they are stunned by Canada's impaired driving laws. Nick Bover explains.
That's Paul. This is my baby brother. Yeah. This isn't going to be easy.
After 39 years, Carla Mayen's brother has been reduced to photos and memories.
I love him. I'm going to miss you. I miss him.
She described him as the center of her family, adored by his parents and especially his nieces and nephews.
And he was present for all of them. for everything that they were doing. So I have a nephew that plays hockey, and he was at every single hockey game. My son plays guitar, and he was at every single gig.
On Saturday afternoon, Paolo Brizzi was killed in a two-car crash on the 401. Police say the driver of the other vehicle was impaired and refused to provide a breath sample. Brizzi's family finds those allegations impossible to believe.
Especially after the Neville Lake incident where 3 children died, and that was a while ago. Nothing has been put into place that, I don't know, that either detects something in the cars, stricter laws, something that scares people.
At court today, the 55-year-old was released on $20,000 bail, and he won't be allowed to drive or drink.
I don't think there's anybody out there that feels as though it's a satisfactory process.
Carolyn Swinson lost her son and father in separate drunk driving incidents. She now counsels grieving families.
The sentences have been creeping up, but are they strong enough? No, I don't think there's any of us out there who would say that they're tough enough.
There's no indication yet about a possible plea from the driver. Either way, the family says not much can help now.
How does your family move forward now that you've lost someone who was, it sounds like, holding you guys together in so many different ways?
We honestly don't know. My dad keeps saying to me, it's too much. It's too much.
Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Vaughan.
A shooting last night near the popular drive-thru for McDonald's and Tim Hortons at Weston and the 401.
They shot it like several times. I hear like about 10 times. It's happened so quick.
This witness said he saw 2 suspects running from the scene late last night. He says he ran to help the victim, who was on the ground covered in blood. The man who was shot is believed to be in his 60s. He's in critical condition. Investigators believe he was the intended target. Earlier in the evening, police were called to another shooting, this one at a strip mall near Kipling and Finch. 2 men were shot here. They managed to make their own way to hospital before emergency crews arrived. Their injuries are not life-threatening. And Peel police also dealing with a shooting. It happened around 1 this morning near Castlemore and the Gore Road. A man was shot in the arm and abdomen. Police found a number of bullet casings at the scene. The garage door of a home in the area also had bullet holes. The victim is expected to survive.
I am a little apprehensive. The city can be slow in rolling things out, but I am going to give it my full faith that it will be executed, because I think it's something this neighborhood can definitely use.
It's a big plan to bring a lot more green space from Corso Italia all the way to the annex, but there are a few obstacles in the way before the green line becomes a reality. We'll explain what the completion date is and why it's more than a decade away coming up. And Colette, you are tracking some active weather for us tonight.
Yeah, I sure am, Dwight. We do have some cells that have shown up. And of course, we had one earlier that came right through northern parts of the city that moved through. Not a severe cell, but still some heavy downpours there. Right now, though, we are looking at some severe cells to the north of us. So the GTA, things a little bit quieter at the moment, but around Barrie and Midland area was a warning in place there. That's just been dropped, but around Orillia, we're still looking at some pretty intense downpours here, some strong wind gusts as well associated with these, and also some nickel-sized hail. So potential for tornadic activity, it is there when we are looking at severe thunderstorm cells, and you can see back here just towards the east of Owen Sound. Now, these are making a pretty good clip here in terms of how they're moving to the east at about 50 kilometers an hour. Broader perspective, but I've also put the lightning strikes on here now, and you can see all those strikes associated with these cells back here, and more development back towards the west, which will be moving eastward too through the overnight hours. So we'll likely see a little more active weather, particularly if you're going to be traveling back towards southwestern Ontario, but there's more to come. You know, we've got the ingredients in place. The temperature right now is 26, Humidex is 30. We've got that humidity. We know that's there. All the areas in yellow in the severe thunderstorm watch, and the areas you see here in red, that's where we actually have the warnings there associated with those cells I showed you. So some of the active weather through the overnight hours, it does become spotty, but towards tomorrow morning, we start to see some of these moving through as well, Toronto, and especially down here towards the Golden Horseshoe, southern parts of the Golden Horseshoe. course, you're getting into some heavy downpours. And then as the cold front comes in through tomorrow, that lifting mechanism, we'll see some more thunderstorms coming back into the afternoon hours. So it's going to come in a couple of waves. Your forecast then overnight tonight, 20 degrees. And with some of that active weather, 28 tomorrow, feeling like 38. It all changes after that cold front goes through, though, Dwight. I'll tell you about that coming up.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
The provincial government is investing millions of dollars into a health hub just east of Ottawa.
This project will see the services of 3 hospitals and 4 community service providers offered right here under one roof to support better transitions between care providers, offer patients one coordinated care plan throughout their healthcare journey, and ultimately reduce wait times and help to end hallway healthcare.
Minister Elliott says the province will invest up to $75 million in the facility, which she described as the first of its kind in Ontario. It will provide specialized healthcare services and programs in either French or English. Those services will include rehab, mental health counseling, and geriatric supports and programs. Plans for the one-story, 96,000 square foot facility have been about a decade in the making. Construction is expected to wrap up in the spring of 2021 before opening to clients and patients sometime that summer. A lottery is on the way to pick the next batch of pot shop operators in Ontario. We're expected to learn by tomorrow the 42 companies that will be selected to apply for cannabis store licenses. The new stores will be placed throughout the province. Toronto is expected to get 13 of them, with another 6 opening across the GTA. Right now, there are 25 legal pot shops operating throughout the province. Nearby one of Toronto's existing pot shops is a brand new jewel store. If you're a parent of a high schooler, you probably already know about the e-cigarettes. Well, today in New York City, a group demonstrated outside the company's headquarters, calling on that city to restrict the flavored tobacco products, including teens who shared their experience with nicotine addiction.
Kids start with flavored pods, and if those were to be off the market, that would help a lot of kids who are already addicted quit, and help a lot of kids who have never started, never start, and never have to deal with the nicotine addiction at such a young age.
Now, the protest comes amid growing concern about e-cigarettes and young people. Dozens of teenagers in the U.S. have been treated this summer for serious breathing problems, and the Centers for Disease Control is now investigating 94 cases associated with vaping. As Christine Burak tells us, health officials here in Canada are watching very closely.
I would say my chest felt like it was collapsing and tightening up, and I couldn't breathe.
Just 18 years old, Chance Amarada thought he was having a heart attack.
I just freaked out, and they said, "Your lung has collapsed. You have to go to surgery right now."
Turns out doctors found a hole in his right lung. The surgeon who repaired it said it could have come from something he'd been inhaling. Amarada says he's never smoked, but started using e-cigarettes over a year ago.
They go from healthy adolescents to really in a life-threatening situation.
In just a month and a half, nearly 100 young patients have shown up in hospitals experiencing pneumonia-like symptoms, including coughing, shortness of breath, and fatigue. Some even required ventilators to help them breathe.
They don't fit anything else that we have previously worked on, understood about lung disease that's more typical in teens.
It's not clear what e-cigarette brand or products they were using or what substances they were inhaling. One Wisconsin teen did report vaping THC, an active ingredient in marijuana. The American Vaping Association, representing e-cigarette makers, believes drugs may be what's causing the lung damage, not nicotine.
Although we haven't heard anything in Canada yet, I think it's just a matter of time.
A recent Canadian study found that teen vaping rose by 74% in 1 year. Doctors say they simply don't know the long-term effects of vaping.
One would just hope that we don't make the same mistake that was done with cigarette smoking 50 years ago before people became aware of its harm.
Amarada says he quit using e-cigarettes. Through social media, he's now encouraging others to do the same.
I used to vape for about 2 years now, and I finally decided to stop. I didn't know I'd be able to reach people from all around the world, and it really just touches my heart.
Hoping some good can come from the worst day of his life. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Parents should be able to put their energy toward those critical first few months and not have to worry so much about their bank accounts or their bottom line.
Andrew Scheer is promising a big change to both maternal and paternal leave benefits in Canada. Details after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Canadian military will decide the fate of a part-time soldier who is accused of recruiting for an extreme right hate group. The Department of National Defense confirmed yesterday it is investigating whether Army Reservist Master Corporal Patrick Matthews is involved with a group calling itself The Base. The allegation came in a report by the Winnipeg Free Press. Karen Pauls has more.
This Winnipeg Park is where reporter Ryan Thorpe met the man he would later identify as Master Corporal Patrick Matthews. Thorpe was undercover, posing as a white nationalist, trying to join the group, The Base. Matthews was his local recruiter doing the entrance interview.
They believe a race war is on the horizon, and they welcome it. They want it to get here. They want it to get here faster. And the method by which you'd go about doing that, it's implicit in the talk, is, terror attacks.
This all started when neo-Nazi propaganda posters appeared in Winnipeg, part of a recruitment drive for The Base. That's a white supremacist network founded in the U.S. in 2018 and active on 3 continents. It's considered by experts to represent the most radical, violent fringes of the extremist right. Today, the Canadian military confirmed Matthews is an active reserve member and addressed concerns that he has access to explosives and weapons.
Master Corporal Matthews has no ability to obtain explosives through the military, and he has no access to weapons. So he basically has a basic understanding of demolition, and he has only access to these types of things on sanctioned military exercises.
Last night, it appeared the RCMP made an arrest in a community about 45 minutes east of Winnipeg. In this video circulating on social media, an RCMP officer speaking on a loudspeaker can be heard saying, "Patrick Matthews, we have a search warrant for this residence. You can exit the back door with your hands in the air." But police will only say it executed a public safety warrant and seized firearms. The investigation is ongoing and no one is in custody at this time. Ryan Thorpe says homegrown hate is a very real threat. We know how much damage one lone wolf can do. He hopes his stories will expose some of the underbelly of this dark world so authorities can take action. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Britain's move to revoke the citizenship of the man known as Jihadi Jack is raising questions here in Canada, namely what the federal government's next move should be. Joining us now with more on the impact of this on this side of the Atlantic is senior parliamentary reporter Julie Van Dusen. So, Julie, let's start with how this is playing out here at home in Canada.
Well, I mean, it's a political hot potato that Britain foisted on Canada. And really, there's not a lot Canada can do because he is a dual citizen. His father was born here. And we're kind of stuck, or the government is stuck, dealing with this situation. Now, it was clear the Prime Minister didn't have the answer yesterday when he was asked about it, because it seems like he's skating a bit, saying that, when you leave your country and go internationally to fight for a terrorist group, we're going to prosecute you. But the problem in this case is that he left Britain. So some observers are saying this makes the case a lot more complicated because all of this happened to a British citizen, even though he is dual. So now we're heading into a campaign. So, of course, everything's political. And Andrew Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party, said there's no way he's going to lift a finger for this guy if he ever becomes Prime Minister. Take a listen.
Justin Trudeau's position on this is very well known. He has indicated that returning ISIS fighters can be rehabilitated and should take poetry lessons. We believe they should be held accountable for their horrific crimes.
Okay, Julie, we see the jab there at the Prime Minister talking about poetry lessons, but what really happens next here?
Well, I mean, the NDP, for example, is saying bring him here to Canada, put him through the justice system, let's see exactly what he did there and do it under the rule of law. The thing is, Jack Letts himself in that interview said it was the stupidest thing that he ever did, going to Syria to begin with, that he was naive. And he says he never killed anyone. His parents, of course, I shouldn't say of course, because we can't assume this, but they are rooting for him and they're pleading with the Canadian government to help him out and give him another chance. He wants to work on anti-radicalization and to help people with what he's learned. But I can tell you, Dwight, there's no welcome mat here. Take a listen to Ralph Goodale.
The point is that he is currently in custody in a Kurdish facility, and Canada is not obliged legally to facilitate his travel, and we won't.
Right. So some are saying, look, the Prime Minister will have a chance perhaps to bring this up with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the G7, which is coming up, and he should do that and try to resolve this. But so far, there's no indication that will happen.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
A campaign promise for new parents. Andrew Scheer says a Conservative government would make maternity and paternity benefits tax-free for new parents.
So the government shouldn't tax parents for the time they take to care for and bond with their new child when they're already making such a huge sacrifice. So a new Conservative government will provide a non-refundable tax credit of 15% for any income earned under the EI maternity and parental benefit programs. So someone making around $50,000 who goes on EI maternity leave benefits would save around $4,000 directly in their pocket to help pay for all the new costs that come with having a new child.
The Conservative leader previously proposed this plan in a private member's bill, but it was defeated This tax break for parents would cost the federal government about $607 million in lost revenue each year.
Feel-good story alert. I'm Ali Chiasson out here at a food bank in Scarborough where just a few weeks ago the shelves were empty until today, thanks to the help and hard work of some awesome volunteers. I'll have that story coming up.
You can have your say in naming 3 new Toronto streets. The city released a list of 10 potential names residents can vote on in an online poll. Among the proposed street names submitted by residents are Rob Fort, Darwin Cook, Westwood, and Beandagen, the Ojibwe word for welcome. The new streets will be part of the reconstruction of the 6 Points interchange in Etobicoke, formerly known as Spaghetti Junction. The redesign includes wide boulevards, improved access to Kipling subway station, and separated bike lanes on all 4 major streets. Work began in spring of 2017 and is expected to be completed in the spring of 2020. Here's what some of you thought of the proposed street names.
Westwood is the theater that I went to many, many years ago when I first moved into the condo across the street.
Darwin Cook, because I read graphic novels myself and it'd be nice to honor someone who contributes to the arts.
Westwood, Welcome. What was the third one? The comic? Those three I would pick.
I just remember I didn't pick Rob Ford. I rated it the lowest. I'm like, nope.
Okay, you can vote on the City of Toronto website, but you have to hurry. Polls close on September 2nd. The city is planning to transform a hodgepodge of disconnected green spaces, parking lots, and hydro corridor into a new park called the Green Line. The project will span several neighborhoods from Corso Italia to the Annex. As Lisa Shing tells us, there are several challenges before residents will be able to enjoy the space.
The green space here in the Dovercourt neighborhood of Toronto isn't much to look at. But that doesn't deter people who live around here from using it. They've been asking the city to upgrade it, and now the city has agreed.
What do you think about more green space potentially coming to this area?
More green space? Yeah, we definitely need it around here. There's only this one here and a small one, a really small one there. Do you want more parks?
Yeah, because I want to play on more parks.
The Green Line will connect a 5-kilometer stretch of hydro towers, parks, and parking lots, linking several neighborhoods from Corso Italia south of St. Clair to the Annex at Davenport and DuPont. Pedestrians and cyclists will pass community gardens, plazas, and public art along the new route.
I am a little apprehensive. The city can be slow in rolling things out, but I am going to give it my full faith that it will be executed because I think it's something this neighborhood can definitely use.
The process has been slow. It's taken 7 years to mock up the plans and could take longer than that to finally open up.
What are some of the challenges associated with something so widespread?
Well, the challenges are that it's not cohesive, that it really is a segmented corridor. Unlike some of the other long corridor projects, if you go to a suburban hydro corridor, it'll go kilometers without any breaks.
Hydro One owns a good portion of the land, so there are safety considerations, and many of the parking lots that run through the future park are privately owned, so the city has to wait for the land to open up.
We fully anticipate at some point in the future, we can't pinpoint the date, but that the need for parking will diminish.
The chair of the committee that oversees parks admits it's a long-term project, but he says the Green Line has the support of council.
It gets people outdoors, it gets people into pedestrian corridors, it's connectivity among various communities.
City Councillor James Pasternak says other green thoroughfares like the 22-kilometer Finch Hydro Corridor has been a huge success. On any given day, you're saying there's a lot of people that come out and use this space.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You'll see dozens of teams as far as the eye can see.
The Green Line won't be finished for at least a decade, and the cost, about $10 million. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
We can always use more green space for our kids to play, for folks to walk their dogs, etc. We'll take it, Colin.
Yeah, we sure will. More places to absorb some of the water that we get when we get these rain events too, right? We do have some active weather out there that I want to talk to you about. So a few areas you see in red here on my maps, that's where we're talking about severe thunderstorm warnings. So that includes in Orillia through Owen Sound, Uxbridge, so in York-Durham regions, Beaverton, you're in the warning area. It just means that there are some cells that are showing that potential. There are severe cells, so some very heavy downpours, but strong wind gusts that can do damage. Nickel-sized hail, that risk too through that area. And all the areas in yellow, the potential is for severe storms to develop because we're into a watch area there. So showing you the radar, and you can see all the lightning strikes that are on here associated with these thunderstorms. But I want to kind of take you in for a closer look because we've got different pockets to kind of be watching. So these are kind of passed through Barrie earlier. You were into the warning in Midland, but those were dry. stopped, but it doesn't mean things won't be changing through the evening hours. So we're looking at some of those cells now that are passing over towards Severn. We've also got what's going on here just to the east of Owen Sound, so kind of between Meaford and Collingwood, through that area, headed towards you in Collingwood. So just be aware of that too. You get some breaks, and then the next batch kind of moves in. So we know we've got the ingredients for it because we have very humid air mass in place. The temperature may be 26, but have a look at the humidex values. In many cases, we're talking about mid-30s, St. Catharines even into the upper 30s, and same thing for southwestern Ontario. So we'll see some of these cells kind of carrying on into the evening. We get some breaks. Then overnight, we're going to get some redevelopment. You see how it comes a little bit further south towards the Niagara Peninsula through that region. But another wave will come through into tomorrow afternoon. So even for the GTA in the morning hours, we overnight towards the morning hours, then kind of a break, likely some sunshine, and then we get some more development into the afternoon because we've got that lifting mechanism of that cold front going through. Now, once it does, Wednesday evening, we'll start to see things really clearing out and setting us up quite nicely for not only Thursday, but several days beyond that with some sunshine. But there is the risk for some isolated severe storms. This is even for tomorrow, so not just what I'm talking about tonight. We could see that with some of that activity tomorrow as well. A quick look then at your overnight temperatures here, 20 degrees, so still running about 5 degrees above seasonal for us. Highs tomorrow are still going to be in the upper 20s, feeling like we're in the upper 30s. So it's one more day of this mugginess, and then everything changes dramatically, and temperatures actually drop a few degrees below seasonal through that trend all the way into the weekend, but with sunshine, Dwight.
Yeah, we do like the sunshine. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
A Mississauga family is giving a heartfelt thank you tonight to Peel first responders who jumped into action to save their drowning son's life. Adrian Chung joins us live from the family home out in Mississauga. Adrian, just a remarkable story.
It really is, Dwight, and it's a story that his own parents weren't sure that they would ever get to see. It's been a very tough summer for the Danish family, but luckily this ends in a happy ending. This is Arman. He's only 3 years old. He's pretty shy, loves the phone, but back in May, he was at a pool with his grandfather, and his grandfather stepped away for just a few minutes, and within that time, Arman ended up in a jacuzzi, and just minutes later, they found him face down on the water. Even quicker, though, were the paramedics who came within 3 minutes after the 911 call in order to save his life. And after that, it was a pretty harrowing 36 hours. Ramin, you're his father, and you were really there from the beginning when he went into the hospital. What do you remember from that very first day?
It was a pretty tough call from my sister that she made, and she advised that my son has drowned. It was a pretty tense situation I was in. There were a lot of things going on through my head. I just wanted to know and see him. His safety was obviously the first concern I had. It was probably my longest drive from work to home that I did. And when I reached there in the hospital, he was on his bedside. There were a lot of doctors, nurses, and paramedics, lots of police officers. There was a sense of relief that, you know, there are people out there that are going to be looking after him, and hopefully he will make it through. And that was my thing that was going through my head.
And we've seen that photo of Arman lying in the hospital bed, tubes coming out of him. He was in a very dire situation. As a parent, what is it like seeing your little boy like that?
It's a very tough situation. I don't wish any parent go through this, but unfortunately, incidents like that happen. I've seen many parents at Sickett's Hospital, maybe in a different situation, but kind of in the same boat as I was. It was a very tough situation. You just can't absorb all the moments that are there. It's just a bad memory, but you know, here we are. It's the hard work of the paramedics, Sickett's Hospital. Thanks to them, tirelessly they work hard, 24 hours, to just bring him back to normal. Definitely God was there for him, but if it wasn't for the paramedics, the police, the fire, the doctors, he would not have made it.
Thank you, Remy. Thank you so much. So you heard it there, obviously. Armin is back. He's the same little boy that he was before this incident, but overall his family ultimately says that this is really down to the work of the paramedics who were there so quickly. Dwight?
Thank you for that, Adrian. A community is rallying around a Scarborough food bank tonight. The location was running low on donations, so staff posted a picture of the bare shelves on social media, and the call for help was answered. But as Ali Chiasson tells us, they are not out of the woods just yet.
We were worried that we weren't able to actually give food to those most in need in our community.
3 weeks ago, the food bank shelves were empty.
Typically, donations really fall during the summer months, and that's where we are right now, in a real low period.
So Agincourt Community Services took to Twitter, posting photos showing one lonely can on a shelf.
That really struck a chord. That was really a moment of awareness and also a call to action that we said we need to do this. It's our duty. This community gave to us, we need to give back.
George Scorsis grew up in Agincourt and made some calls.
Within weeks, we had friends, family, major businesses just come back to us and say, we're in.
Today, the trucks arrived. Fresh corn, that's awesome.
I know, this is amazing. Our clients are going to love this.
Donations poured in.
I have been volunteering 3 years. I never seen something huge like this. Thank you for all the donations. To be honest, it's really helpful.
Shireen Ibrahim isn't just a volunteer, she's a client.
I am a widow. I lost my husband 5 years ago. And with the 3 kids, it's hard.
Are there some days where you have to say no to the kids?
Yeah, many times. Many times I have to say no, especially in Christmas time.
So let's talk about the types of food that we're donating. People who need to access food banks aren't any less deserving of healthy, nutritious food. So typically we will ask for things like canned meats. They're always hard to come by. We are also one of the very few food banks that offer eggs and cheese and milk and fresh vegetables as well, because that's also an important part of people's diets.
The shelves are full here again, for now. How long is that going to last?
To be honest, 2 to 3 days. Wow. That's it.
We live in a city that has the haves and the have-nots. And we are here to take care of those less fortunate.
It's not about today, it's about tomorrow, it's about next week, and it's about next year. And we really want to make sure that this is a continuous level of support.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
I've always wanted to meet someone that plays games for a living.
You guys are your heroes. They're your heroes?
Yeah, pretty much.
And soon they'll be able to watch their heroes in their hometown. After the break, the legendary Toronto Concert Hall that's about to become the home arena for an esports team. Move over Leafs. There's a new franchise in town. The Toronto Defiant are an esports team. They play the video game Overwatch in a professional league. And starting next year, they'll have a legendary home court. Roy Thompson Hall. Greg Ross explains.
It's a venue best known for this. But coming soon, Roy Thompson Hall will host this.
I thought that was a moment.
Esports team Toronto Defiant just finished its inaugural season,
The hard hold for the Toronto Defiant.
playing all games in Los Angeles. But starting next season, teams will travel from city to city, including Toronto.
I mean, do you think 2,600 people are going to come and sit here at Roy Thompson Hall to watch these guys play live?
Yeah, we have no doubt about that.
And the ownership group has good reason to be confident. The Defiant already have a huge following that have been attending viewing parties throughout the team's first season.
Toronto has never played a home game here, but they already have their own fan group.
I mean, that's Toronto, though, right? We are very quick to have our supporters club.
They're called Toronto Alpha Flight, and they compare themselves to some of the clubs that support Toronto FC.
I like to think that we're a slightly toned-down version of the N section with fewer streamers. But realistically, it's loud, it's raucous.
Esports teams are also competing with traditional sports teams for a younger fan base.
For you guys, this is a big deal.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yeah. I've always wanted to meet like someone that plays games for like a living.
These guys are your heroes. They're your heroes?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's too hot.
For players like Liam Campbell, who is from Toronto, the thought of having adoring fans is still pretty new.
It's something that I never really felt like I deserved for a long time. I've spent all this time just in my room playing video games, kind of secluded. Not a lot of people know me, and to think that like I can get recognized in the streets is it's not even a thought in my head,
Player from on high.
Fans who want to see Campbell play live can expect to pay the same as they would to see other Toronto sports stars like Mitch Marner and Kyle Lowry.
Your ticket prices will be on the same level as other professional sports franchises in this city.
Yeah, that's right. This is a premium product.
The Overwatch season starts in February. Toronto will host homestands in April and in August. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Esports not your thing? How about A-listers? There are some coming to our town as part of TIFF. You can see their faces there. The festival released their full schedule today. More on that after the break. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have spoken extensively about climate change. Now their words are coming back to haunt them. Meghan and Harry are under fire for their use of private jets. 4 flights in 11 days, including a personal trip to Elton John's home. Renee Filipponi has the details.
Everything the Duke and Duchess of Sussex do is highly scrutinized by the press here, and this is no exception. The couple, along with their son Archie, have taken a number of vacations this summer using private jets, the latest on Elton John's plane to his home in Nice. Now, the controversy lies in the fact that the pair have been pushing for action on climate change and environmental issues, and yet they appear to have no problems with the carbon footprint of flying in these exclusive jets. Have a look at some of the headlines today, clever as they usually are here. One reads, 4th private jet trip in 11 days is car bonkers. Another calling this turbulent times for the prince. Recently, Harry spoke about the decision to only have 2 children because of concerns of overpopulation and the impact on the environment. It's a consistent message for the pair.
Let's talk about the health of our planet too. Climate change is a humanitarian issue, not a political one. And it's one where we've been far too slow in waking up to the issues and acting on the damaging impact our ways of living are having on the world.
Now, Elton John was a close friend of Princess Diana and came to the couple's defense, saying it's been a stressful time for the pair who've had to deal with distorted and malicious accounts of their trip to his home. And he also wrote this very personal response, saying, Prince Harry's mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, was one of my dearest friends. I feel a profound sense of obligation to protect Harry and his family from the unnecessary press intrusions that contributed to Diana's untimely death. Elton John also pointed out that he paid for carbon offsets for the flight. So far, Buckingham Palace has not commented on this. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
We are just 2 weeks away from TIFF. Today we learn more about what this year's festival will have to offer. Stephanie Skinderis joins us now. She has all the information. You know, we want to hear from the really big stars. Will there be any big stars in town?
I mean, there will be. We know there will be. There always are. But today we learned about a couple really specific things, and one of them is the In Conversation With series. This is something that TIFF does every year. It brings out some of these big stars for intimate conversations about their careers, basically. And today we learned 2 of the big stars that will be at this year's series. They are Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx. Now, their movie, it's called Just Mercy. It also stars Brie Larson. It's making its world premiere at TIFF. And Cameron Bailey, he's the co-head and the artistic director of TIFF, he told us this is definitely a movie to watch. It's a true story about a young lawyer fighting for justice for people wrongly convicted in Alabama.
Just Mercy. I read
it's
that
based
book.
on a memoir, exactly.
Okay.
So this is the movie Cameron Bailey told us. One to watch. Keep that in mind. Okay, also at the In Conversation With series this year, we'll see Allison Janney. She's premiering the movie Bad Education at TIFF. Antonio Banderas, he's speaking about 2 films. Now, Kerry Washington, she's promoting American Son. That's premiering at TIFF too. Now, we spoke to Cameron Bailey. He told us it's all part of what makes this festival come together, the movies and the conversation. Here's more of what he said.
It's a way to bring people together, you know? We watch movies together, we feel things together, we talk about those movies together. That's what a film festival is all about.
Okay, so Cameron says it's about the movies and the conversation, but they also need to make some money, and there's a new way of doing that this year.
There is, and it's just happening this year for the first time. It's called the Tribute Gala. So not just anybody can go to this gala. You do need some money to attend. You need to buy a table. It's a fundraiser, all of that. But today we learned one of the people who will be honored at this gala. It is French director and actress Mati Diop. She will receive the Mary Pickford Award for an emerging, groundbreaking female talent. Mary Pickford, of course, herself born in Toronto.
Yeah, famous actress from back in the day, way back, yeah.
So Mati Diop here, she directed the film Atlantics, and with that film, she became the first Black female director in contention for the Palme d'Or at Cannes. She didn't win, but she did win the Grand Prix. That's like the second prize. We've already heard actually, that Meryl Streep, Joaquin Phoenix, they will receive Tribute Actor Awards, and Taika Waititi, he's the New Zealand director known for offbeat films. Also, Thor Ragnarok, he will receive the Ebert Director Award. Now, Cameron Bailey told us why these people are so important to honor, aside from the fact they do have films at the festival. Have a listen to that.
I think they are the best in their field. They represent just quality and excellence in the art of film. I think their work is aligned with our mission to transform the way people see the world through film. These are transformative artists, and people like Matty Diop and Taika Waititi are doing work that really opens our eyes to other parts of the world and other stories that maybe haven't been on screen as much before.
Now, if you are planning to go to TIFF, I do have one more note for you that we just heard today. This year's schedule will be paperless. You have to go online to see it, download it to your phone. That's new from this year. Cameron Bailey says it's good for the environment.
Really is, and it's an exciting time in the city when TIFF hits, and we'll be
Always.
talking about all the stars as we turn into Hollywood North for a couple of weeks. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Here's something you don't see every day. Yes, those are mattresses, air mattresses to be precise, dozens of them tumbling through a neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. They'd been set up for an outdoor movie night when the wind picked up and picked them up. The video of them rolling across a field and into a pool, probably better than what the moviegoers were going to watch on the big screen. That's incredible. Look how many of them there are.
I've been to outdoor films. I never get a pull-up mattress.
Not a pull-out mattress. But we're talking about weather here because the wind was blowing them. But we have our own active weather.
Yeah, we sure do. And I was mentioning earlier that there had been warnings for Midland and Barrie through that region, and that because of some redevelopment of those cells, we might see those reissued in some of those areas. And sure enough, Environment Canada now a warning back out for Barrie, Midland area around Collingwood. We're looking at some active weather there. So we're talking about winds that could certainly blow mattresses around. Some very strong winds. winds, some heavy downpours, and also that potential for nickel-sized hail. So we do have some active weather still out there, most of it to the north of the GTA, but into cottage country where we know we have some viewers. Overnight tonight, 20 degrees will be the overnight low, so still running about 5 degrees above seasonal. Still some spotty showers and thunderstorms, and then towards the morning hours, the first wave kind of comes in that we'll be seeing tomorrow, and then into the afternoon, some redevelopment. So 28 for the high. One more muggy day. Could have some severe weather tomorrow afternoon, so we'll be kind of watching those storms tomorrow, and then everything changes, and it drier and more comfortable and cooler temperatures.
Into the weekend. And the humidity has a little bit to play
Oh,
with this
yeah,
too.
that's going to be coming down. It plays into these cells, that's for sure. Yeah, the
Thanks,
development.
Colette. That's it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6.